Welcome to the Deep Dive. We cut through the noise to give you the insights you need. Today, we're digging into a story that just keeps developing. Ghislaine Maxwell. There's been this flurry of activity recently.
That's right. It's pretty intense.
So we're going to unpack these recent meetings she had with the Department of Justice, this, surprising talk about a presidential pardon, and also touch on the conditions where she's actually imprisoned.
It's a complex picture, definitely.
Our mission, as always, is to connect the dots for you, to give you a clear understanding of what's really happening behind the headlines. Okay, let's get right into it.
It's certainly a story with many layers, and the very latest news is raising some big questions, about justice at the highest levels. Just this past week, July 24th and 25th, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving that 20-year sentence for sex trafficking,
Right.
She spent 2 days being interviewed by the U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. This was down in Tallahassee, Florida.
2 whole days with the Deputy AG himself. That feels like a lot of time for someone that high up.
It really is. And according to her lawyer, David Marcus, she answered something like 100 different questions.
100?
About 100 different people, all related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. And Marcus made a point of saying she never invoked privilege.
So full cooperation, it sounds like.
Apparently. And here's a really crucial detail. She was given limited immunity for those interviews.
Okay, limited immunity. What does that mean in practice here?
It means essentially that whatever she said in those specific talks can't be used to bring new charges against her. It's a tool investigators sometimes use, to get information.
Right, to encourage people to talk.
Exactly. But using it here, given she's already convicted, it's specific.
So she's cooperating under this limited immunity. That sounds strategic. What's the play here from her legal team?
Well, they're being pretty open about it. They are pushing for a presidential pardon.
A pardon? Seriously?
Yes. Her lawyer, Marcus, actually said, quote, "We hope he exercises that power in the right and just way." It's a bold ask. And this is all happening while she's also appealing her conviction to the Supreme Court.
Still fighting the original case, arguing that Epstein's old plea deal from 2008 should have covered her.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
And as if that weren't enough, she's also got a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee. They want her testimony on August 11th.
Wow, so she's definitely staying in the headlines, even from prison.
No kidding.
But let's go back to Deputy AG Todd Blanche doing these interviews himself. That really jumps out. You mentioned former prosecutors are concerned, calling it unorthodox.
Yes, unorthodox and concerning is how several describe it. And a big part of that is Blanche's background.
His background.
Yeah, before this role, he was actually President Trump's personal defense lawyer. You might remember him from the Stormy Daniels hush money case.
Ah, right, okay.
So having him, a political appointee with that history, directly questioning Maxwell, former federal prosecutors are pretty bewildered. They're calling it a political move, not standard DOJ procedure. Normally, you'd have the line prosecutors handle this.
The career attorneys who actually work the case.
Exactly. The ones who know all the details, the evidence, the witnesses. They're usually the ones questioning cooperating defendants or witnesses. The concern is about perception, political influence versus standard procedure.
And the timing. That adds another layer, doesn't it?
It really does. The lead prosecutor on Maxwell's case, Maureen Comey, she was reportedly fired by the Trump administration just a week before Blanche started these interviews.
A week before?
So that timing just fuels more questions about, the legitimacy, the intent behind this whole thing.
And is her testimony even reliable? I mean, wouldn't she say anything to get out of a 20-year sentence?
That's exactly the point raised by Elizabeth Oyer, a former pardon attorney at the Justice Department. She questioned how reliable Maxwell's information could really be, given that massive incentive to, quote, cut a deal.
Makes sense. Has Blanche said anything publicly about why he's doing this personally?
He put out a statement saying he'd pursue justice wherever the facts may lead, and that he'd listen if Maxwell had information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims.
Okay.
But critics, including former prosecutors, argue that someone like him coming in at this stage just doesn't have the deep case knowledge needed.
Right. They can't really judge if she's telling the truth or just spinning a story if they don't know all the facts already.
Precisely. One said Blanche is in no position to assess the truth. It definitely raises questions about the independence of the investigation.
This whole situation inevitably brings up the idea of a presidential pardon. Can we just quickly recap what that power actually is?
Sure. A presidential pardon comes from the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2. It's an act of executive clemency. The president can basically forgive federal crimes, It restores rights, like voting, but doesn't wipe the conviction off the record usually.
And it's a pretty broad power, historically.
Oh, absolutely. Goes right back to George Washington, pardoning folks involved in the Whiskey Rebellion. We've seen it used many times. Ford pardoning Nixon, Carter pardoning draft evaders. Always sparks debate.
And President Trump certainly used his pardon power quite a bit, often controversially.
He did. Generated a lot of headlines, pardoning figures like Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Right, for criminal contempt.
And Michael Flynn, his former national security advisor, who'd pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. And he also talked about pardoning many involved in the January 6th Capitol incident.
So when he was asked directly about pardoning Maxwell just recently, what did he say?
The quote from July 25th was, "It's something I haven't thought about. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about."
Allowed to do it. Interesting phrasing.
It is.
Okay, now let's get into this really wild theory that's floating around. It kind of flips the script from a legal appeal to, well, political hardball.
The blackmail theory, yeah.
Right. The idea that maybe Maxwell's family is leaking damaging stuff about Trump's past with Epstein to pressure him into a pardon. How would that even work?
Well, the theory goes that the family, Ghislaine sisters, Christine and Isabel, they had that software company the FBI used. There are connections there.
And wasn't their father, Robert Maxwell, a media mogul? Connections everywhere.
Exactly. And Rupert Murdoch, who owns the Wall Street Journal, had ties to the family. So the idea is they could be strategically leaking info to create leverage. Like the Wall Street Journal recently reported on that leaked birthday book Maxwell made for Epstein back in 2003.
Yeah.
It supposedly had a dialogue between Trump and Epstein.
I remember hearing about that.
And Julie K. Brown, the journalist who really broke the Epstein story wide open, she's heard whispers that this book is just the tip of the iceberg.
So what specific things are surfacing that feed this theory?
Well, there are these resurfaced allegations about Trump at a casino with a young woman, maybe 19. Other reports, maybe less substantiated, about trafficking 16, 22-year-old women to Epstein.
Wow.
And new photos showing Epstein at Trump's wedding have popped up again. Plus, you have victims like Maria Farmer.
What did she say?
She gave a really powerful statement claiming everyone around Epstein and Maxwell knew they were traffickers. And she specifically said Trump acted like a creep towards her.
Chilling. So all this stuff, new or old, is bubbling up right when pardon talk starts.
Exactly. That's the context fueling the speculation.
How has Trump responded to these kinds of links to Epstein over the years?
His consistent approach has been deflection. He often calls the whole Epstein saga a hoax.
A hoax.
Yeah. And he frequently points fingers elsewhere, emphasizing Epstein's ties to other big names like Bill Clinton or Larry Summers, saying they were the really close friends, trying to spread the focus, basically.
It's just an incredibly tangled web of legal issues and political maneuvering. But while all this high-stakes drama plays out, there's the reality of where Maxwell is right now, FCA Tallahassee. What has her being there revealed about that prison and maybe the system more broadly?
That's such an important point. We hear low-security federal prison and maybe picture something less harsh, the whole club-fed myth.
Right.
But accounts from women actually incarcerated at FCI Tallahassee paint a very different picture. They describe it as abusive, predatory, and retaliatory. Maxwell's presence, maybe unintentionally, has put a spotlight on some really systemic problems.
Abusive and predatory, what kind of problems are we talking about?
One of the most disturbing is widespread sexual abuse by male staff. It's shocking. Yeah, records show over 130 complaints of staff on prisoner abuse there since 2012. That's one of the highest rates in the federal system. Staff allegedly use coercion promises of better treatment, fast food, drugs, even relationships to groom women.
Yeah.
It's a horrific abuse of power.
That's awful. And is anyone held accountable? What happens to these guards?
Well, that's the other huge issue. A culture of impunity. Often, perpetrators just get transferred, or they're allowed to retire quietly. Criminal charges seem rare. There's talk of a green wall of silence among staff protecting each other. We've seen cases like Philip Golightly, a guard who got just 2 years despite abusing multiple women.
Only 2 years.
Or Jimmy Lee Highsmith, an internal investigation found he likely sexually abused inmates, but he was actually promoted and transferred before eventually getting sentenced to 4 years. It suggests the system for handling complaints is deeply flawed.
Unbelievable. And what happens to the women who try to report this?
They face retaliation, threats, more abuse, being thrown into solitary confinement, often framed as being for their protection, but it feels like punishment.
So it silences them.
Effectively, yes. And their calls and emails are monitored, so even talking about it is risky. Plus, those official audits, the PREA audits, meant to prevent prison rape. They've been called a complete whitewash at facilities like this, just not capturing the reality.
So beyond the abuse, what are the basic living conditions like there?
Pretty grim, based on reports. Things like spoiled food, not enough food, water you can't trust, freezing cold showers, sometimes no hot water for weeks, just grinding, despair-inducing conditions.
It paints a bleak picture. So does Maxwell's fame help shine a light, or does it just distract from these deeper issues?
That's the question, isn't it? Her case brings attention, yes, but maybe it also means the focus is on her story, potentially overshadowing the systemic failures affecting all the women there and in similar prisons.
So wrapping this all up, what does it all mean? We've got Maxwell's legal strategy, the DOJ's unusual involvement, the politics of pardons, the grim prison reality.
Yeah, putting it all together, this deep dive really shows you a story with so many intersecting layers. It's not just headlines. It's about power, how the legal system works, or maybe doesn't, and accountability in our institutions. You see this convergence of my high-profile case, strange government actions, political leverage, and these terrible prison conditions. It forces you to look hard at the integrity of the whole system.
Right. It really feels like we're seeing this uncomfortable mix. The legal system, which you hope is impartial, getting tangled up with political moves, and then the harsh reality of prison life exposed by this one famous inmate. The key takeaway, perhaps, is how easily power, politics, and the pursuit of justice can collide, and maybe even distort each other. It really leaves you thinking.
Definitely.
As all this continues to unfold, you have to ask, what does this interplay between high-stakes legal games and raw political influence do to public trust and justice? And could these events actually change how we think about transparency and accountability, especially at the very top? Something to keep watching for sure.